One of the experts in investing, although I've focused most on what he says about precious metals like silver, is Rick Rule. And I was listening to one of his interviews a few days ago, and he changed the subject totally, and that was the community banks. And what he said, which intrigued me, was the banking industry, because of all the questions about financing in the country and other issues. I think the big issue with banks is that so much of their balance sheet was in holding treasury bonds. And when the interest rates went up several years ago, the treasury bonds, of course, collapsed in price, which caused so many banks to, in effect, be bankrupt. And they did this deal with the government where they said, well, we'll allow you to consider the value of your bank's treasury bond holdings among your bank assets, will allow you to value that at the price when they are mature, which might be 5 years, 10 years from now. And therefore, you don't have to go under because even though in effect you're illiquid and bankrupt, why we're going to let you keep going. All of the issues about this have caused the banking industry stocks to be very depressed, and also until I listened to Mr. Rule, whom I've never met but very impressive, was saying, you ought to take a look at the banks, community banks, that haven't put a lot of money into treasury bonds. Well, I got a list of all the something like 360 publicly traded banks, and I started from the bottom and came up with Optimum Bank Holdings in Florida. And what's intriguing about it is that the difference in the value, in the price comparisons, is outstanding. Optimum Bank Holdings in the market, the stock market says, well, you're worth 50 million, the market cap of the stock. They've got 100 million in common equity. And that alone, it's amazing because overall in the stock market, the stock market being very high priced overall is selling at 4 times book value. So, like if you had a stock where the book value, as in with Optimum, was 100 million, the market cap would be 400 million. Whereas in the case of Optimum, it's 50 million. I mean, that's incredible. On top of that, the earnings growth and the sales growth, it's a solid commercial bank doing the normal good stuff. It's like selling at 3 times earnings, whereas the PE of the average stock is much higher. So, to make a long story short, I'm going to be recommending it in our upcoming newsletter, and I think it's a very intriguing situation. And what Rick Rule also said, which I totally agree with, is that it may well be that in markets such as in Florida, where Optimum has the money to make normal business loans, somebody wants to build a little plant and might need a loan of a few $1,000,000 for uh, 2 or 3 years or whatever. That's the kind of business that Optimum is happy to do and has the money to loan on that. Whereas perhaps, I'm just assuming, some of the bigger banks who are locked in with all these treasury bonds now selling at a discount, they don't have the ability to compete for those kind of loans. The final thing I would say about Optimum is SBA, the Small Business Administration, just put them in a class as being a premium bank to work with. And so I don't know what percent of their loans that they make are where they're tied in with the SBA, but it's certainly a good plus So putting all that together, we now have another industry that I think is very intriguing. And with Optimum, we have a participant of our readers who were interested in investing in community banks.